Good day, everyone. I am Atika, reporting on a research study conducted at University Kebangsaan Malaysia UKM that examines how nonverbal communication affects introverted students in academic settings. In UKM classrooms, communication is often judged by who speaks the most. Yet, for many introverted students, participation happens without words, which is through gestures, expressions, and silent responses. Take a moment and notice how you are responding right now. That might be a nod, a smile, or even eye contact. Those reactions are exactly what this research focuses on. Introversion is frequently misunderstood as a lack of participation. However, as noted in recent research by Shahzadi and colleagues 2024, academic studies describe introversion as a communication tendency rather than a disorder. Introverted students often experience higher nervousness during verbal interactions and prefer internal processings before expressing ideas. Therefore, this research investigates how nonverbal communication supports confidence and understanding among introverted students at UKM and when verbal expression is limited. Now, we turn our attention to the central aim guiding this study. I will now pass it to Ara, who will present the project aims, while the rest of the purported team continues the research questions, methodology, key findings, and critical analysis.
Thank you, Atika, for the clear introduction. Now, I will be reporting on the project aim of our study. The aim of this research is to examine the role of nonverbal communication in supporting confidence and understanding among introverted students at University Kebangsaan Malaysia during academic interactions. Nonverbal communication refers to behaviors such as eye contact and head movement. This action not only allows students to show attention, but also agreement, confusion, or even confidence without actually using words. For introverted students, these cues provide an alternative way for them to participate and express themselves even when verbal communication is limited. This study focused on introverted students specifically as they often speak less in class but remain actively engaged. By exploring their nonverbal behavior, we seek to understand how they maintain confidence and comprehension in different academic settings such as lectures and presentation. This research is important because participation is often measured by verbal contribution. Previous studies rarely highlight the contribution of students who communicate non-verbally. By addressing this gap, our study helps lecturers and peers recognize engagement and support students learning more effectively. It shows that even without words, students can actually demonstrate knowledge, understanding, and confidence. Overall, this project highlights that silence does not equal disengagement. Non-verbal communication represents a different but meaningful way for introverted students to actually actively participate in academic setting. To support our study, we have conducted a short interview with a University Kebangsaan Malaysia students. In this clip, you will hear the questions that we asked to explore non-verbal communication that are practiced around in our campus. And the non-verbal communication is the independent variable in our research.
Hi, today we are going to interview.
Hi, my name is Adnin. I'm from Faculty of Social and Humanities and I study Malay Studies.
Can I know if you know what is non-verbal communication, and if you know, how do you use it in daily life, especially in academic setting?
Yes, I do know about public communication. It's more like hand gesture, eye contacts, and other sorts of right. For example, when I present, I usually use hand gesture. I think there's a lot of benefit to it because we can just release our stress or any nervous system we have in our body, so that we can just skip to it and let them focus on our hands.
Do you feel like using non-verbal communication helps you to do better in presentation?
Yes, I do, because sometimes it helps me to release my nervous system so that I won't be like stutter whenever I do my presentation.
Hi, my name is Ahmad Muhammad bin Abdul Halim, and I'm going to talk to you about the research questions. First of all, the first research questions will be: what is the level of awareness of nonverbal communication among introverted UKM students in academic interactions? It asks about the understanding of nonverbal cues such as eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, posture, and the tone of voice. The awareness of how nonverbal communication supports or replaces verbal communication in class. The ability to interpret lecturers' nonverbal signals, for example, nodding, facial expressions, hand gestures, and so on. and the self-awareness of their own nonverbal behavior during presentation, discussion, or group work. The next research question would be, how do introverted UKM students use nonverbal communication during academic interactions? It asks about the use of nonverbal cues to participate without speaking, such as nodding, note-taking, or eye contact. The body language used to show agreement, confusion, or attentiveness. And the preference for nonverbal communication when feeling shy or anxious in discussions. The final research question would be, what is the perceived impact of nonverbal communication on introverted UKM students' confidence and understanding in academic readings? It asks about how nonverbal communication helps students feel more confident when speaking is difficult. It also points out the role of positive non-verbal feedback from lecturers, such as smiling and nodding, in boosting confidence. It also asks about the impact on understanding lecture content, such as interpreting gestures or visual cues, the reduction of communication anxiety through nonverbal participation, and how effective nonverbal communication improves engagement and learning experience.
Good day. Today we are taking a closer look at how nonverbal communication shapes the way people interact in organizations and classrooms, based on findings from 2 recent studies. The first study shows that communication in organizations, especially in educational settings like UKM, goes far beyond spoken words. Facial expressions and body language and emotional cues play a major role in helping people understand ideas, attitudes, and intentions. The study points out that nonverbal communication works hand in hand with verbal communication, allowing messages to be clearly received and reducing the chances of misunderstanding. When used effectively, it contributes to stronger coordination, better relationships, and overall organizational success. The second study focuses on communication styles among introverted individuals. It found that introverts often rely on nonverbal signals such as pauses, silence, and slower speech. Rather than indicating a lack of participation, these behaviors reflect careful thinking and active engagement. The study highlights an important insight. Communication does not stop when someone is quiet, meaning it's still being shared. When we compare both studies, one clear message stands out. Non-verbal communication matters, whether at the organizational level or the individual level. Together, the findings challenge the idea that speaking more means communicating better. In short, these studies remind us that understanding people requires paying attention not just to what is said, but also to what is expressed without words. That's all for this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. After reviewing what past researchers say about non-verbal communication, our team went into the field to see how it actually works among UKM students. Specifically, we focused on introverted and less verbally expressive learners and how they use non-verbal communication as a confidence tool in academic settings. Let's take a closer look at how we collect our data and what UKM students reveal. We gather our data using an online questionnaire designed through Google Form and distributed to UKM undergraduates via WhatsApp and Telegram class groups. This allows students to respond anonymously and honestly. The first part of our form, Section A, collected background information such as gender, age, faculty, and year of study. From this section, we found that respondents come from various faculties and academic levels, showing that nonverbal communication is relevant across disciplines, not only for language students. Many participants also describe themselves as quiet observers who prefer listening before speaking. This reflects their introverted tendencies and helps us understand why nonverbal communication becomes important for them in classroom interaction. Section B, we examine students' awareness of nonverbal communication. These questions measure whether students believe their body language affect how messages are received and how confident they appear. The findings show that most students are highly aware that nonverbal behavior influences communication. They agree that facial expression, posture, and eye contact shape how lecturers and peers perceive them. Several students indicate that even when they remain quiet, their body language still communicates understanding, confusion, or interest. This suggests that introverted students are not passive communicators. Instead, they rely on nonverbal cues that stay involved without speaking excessively. Moving to the section C, which focuses on students' actual use of nonverbal cues in academic settings. Here, we ask about eye contact, facial expressions, hand gestures, and postures, and head nodding. Our results show that the most frequently cues are facial expressions, eye contact, and head nodding. Students reported nodding shows agreement, maintaining eye contact to signal attentiveness, and using facial expressions indicate confusion when they hesitate to ask questions verbally. Many respondents also shared that during presentation, they rely on hand gestures when they forget their words. These gestures help them to organize their thoughts and continue speaking more confidently. Interestingly, some students say that simply standing straight and controlling their movement made them feel more prepared even before they start speaking. Section D examined the impact of nonverbal communication on confidence, attentiveness, and clarity. This section produced the strongest pattern in our data. A large number of students agree that nonverbal communication increases their confidence when speaking in class or giving presentation. Respondents shared that making eye contact helped them feel more connected with their audience, while good postures reduced nervousness. Some mentioned that when they controlled their breathing and body movement, they felt calmer and more focused. Beyond confidence, nonverbal communication also helped prevent misunderstanding. When students tilt their head, pause, or show confusion through facial expressions, lecturers often notice and adjust their explanation. For introverted UCAM students, body language becomes a supportive voice, allowing participants even when verbal expression feels difficult. Moving to section A, we explored the impact of nonverbal communication, especially on confidence and clarity. This section revealed one of the strongest trends. A large number of students agreed that nonverbal communication increased their confidence when speaking. Respondents said that making eye contact helped them feel connected with the audience, while good postures reduced nervousness. Some mentioned that controlling breathing and body movement helped them feel calmer and more focused during presentations. Nonverbal cues also helped reduce misunderstanding. When students showed confusion through facial expressions or gestures, lecturers often noticed and adjusted their explanations. Finally, section F allows students to share their real experiences through open-ended response. Here, students describe situations where nonverbal communication helped them when words were difficult. Some shared that nodding and facial expressions allowed lecturers to notice their confusion without them having to interrupt. Others explained that hand gestures and posture helped them to look more confident even when they felt nervous inside. These responses show that nonverbal communication becomes a supportive voice for introverted UCAM students, allowing them to express understanding, emotion, and confidence silently. Overall, our integrated findings show that nonverbal communication is not just a supplement to speech. It is a strategic tool that helps introverted students manage their anxiety, express understanding, and remain engaged in academic interaction when words are limited. While these findings describe what students do and feel, the next step is to examine what they actually mean for communication theory and classroom practice. To interpret and evaluate our results more deeply, I will now pass this to the next speaker for the critical analysis segment.
I will now be reporting on the importance of non-verbal communication among UCAM students with a particular focus on introverted students under the theme When Words Are Limited. Non-verbal communication plays an important and critical role in the majority of students at University Kebangsaan Malaysia or UKM. While verbal communication is often seen as the main indicator of participation, research shows that communication does not stop when words stop. In fact, introverted UKM students often engage and understand lessons through non-verbal cues. These students may speak less during class discussions, but this does not indicate a lack of interest or understanding. Instead, they actively process information internally and communicate in ways that are less visible but equally meaningful. One of the most common non-verbal cues observed among introverted students is silence. Silence, along with pauses, reflects active thinking and cognitive processing. When introverted students pause before responding, they are not disengaged. They are carefully organizing their thoughts, analyzing information, and formulating well-considered answers. This type of communication is especially used when verbal expressions are limited. Rather than responding immediately or spontaneously, introverted students often take more time. This leads to another important indicator, which is delayed response timing. Delayed responses emphasize careful formulation of answers rather than uncertainty or lack of confidence. These nonverbal behaviors send important signals to lecturers. Through nonverbal communication, lecturers are able to better interpret students' participation, even when students are not verbally active. It also helps lecturers understand students' personality traits and communication styles, particularly among introverted learners. Most importantly, awareness of nonverbal cues help lecturers avoid misjudging introverted students or as passive or uninterested. The reality is that these students are academically present and mentally engaged, even if their participation is not verbally dominant. The indicators that reflect this engagement include pausing pattern, speech rhythm, and response timing. These cues provide valuable insight into how introverted students process and respond to academic content. When lecturers are able to recognize these positive signs, it allows them to once again better interpret student participation, understand personality and communication style, and prevent unfair assumptions about the students' involvement in class. Therefore, as an educational institution and organization, University Kebangsaan Malaysia or UKM must recognize non-verbal communication as equally important as verbal communication does. Valuing both forms of communication supports inclusivity, fairness, and a deeper understanding of diverse learning styles among students. That concludes my report on the role of nonverbal communication among introverted UKM students. Now, we'll pass it to our next news anchor for the following report.
Thank you to the previous reporter. The analysis reveals several significant patterns in how students understand and apply nonverbal communication in academic settings. First, the findings highlight a clear awareness usage gap. While a majority of students demonstrate a strong understanding of the role nonverbal communication plays in shaping message delivery, fewer actively apply these skills during academic interactions. This gap points to what researchers describe as a cognitive behavioral lag, where theoretical knowledge does not consistently translate into practice. For many students, particularly those who are introverted, factors such as anxiety, self-consciousness, and fear of judgment limit their willingness to use nonverbal cues effectively. Next, the data uncovers a confidence paradox. Students acknowledge that nonverbal communication helps boost their confidence when speaking. At the same time, they are also aware that these same cues influence how confident they appear to others. This pattern aligns with self-perception theory, which suggests that individuals form attitudes by observing their own behavior. In high-pressure situations such as presentations, controlled gestures or facial cues function as a stabilizing mechanism, helping students manage nervousness and maintain composure. Moving on, the study shows that students rely heavily on high-visibility nonverbal cues. Facial expressions and head nodding emerge as the most frequently used behaviors, primarily to signal attentiveness and agreement in class. These cues are immediate, socially acceptable, and easy to control. In contrast, more complex elements such as posture and spatial distance are rarely used, indicating a limited awareness or confidence in managing less visible aspects of nonverbal communication. Most notably, nonverbal communication is viewed as a critical shield against misunderstanding. A significant majority of respondents agree that poor nonverbal cues directly contributes to misinterpretation. These non-lexical signals influence trust, credibility, and audience perception. In an academic environment like UKM, nonverbal communication functions as a necessary complement to spoken language, shaping understanding, attitudes, and responses. Finally, the study acknowledges several limitations, including a small sample size and reliance on self-reported data. Future research would benefit from direct observation or interviews to better capture real classroom behavior. Overall, the findings suggest that nonverbal communication should be more actively taught and promoted, especially for introverted students, as it remains a powerful tool for building confidence, reducing misunderstandings, and enhancing classroom engagement. That concludes this segment. For more on the following section, we now turn to reporter Nur Atika Farha.
I am back with the final insights from our research on introverted students at UKM. Our study shows that communication in the classroom extends far beyond spoken words. Introverted students frequently use nonverbal cues to express understanding and stay engaged when speaking feels difficult. These nonverbal signals support students' confidence and allow them to participate meaningfully in discussions, presentations, and group activities. Our findings send a clear message that classroom participation should not be judged only by verbal contributions. By recognizing and encouraging nonverbal communication, learning environments can be more inclusive, giving all students the chance to express themselves fully. In the end, among UKM students, it's not always what students say, but it's what they show that matters the most.